Hello, welcome to another weekly update. Hope everyone is keeping safe. I don't know about you, I am well overdue for a haircut. There's lots of things happening to talk about this week, so kind of let's get through them. So, last week I spoke a little bit about the lap around the Microsoft Graph Toolkit series that started, and there's two more blog posts this week from that series, day 3 and day 4. Day 3 is all about toolkit components that you can use in the Graph Toolkit, and day 4 is all about customizing components. So if you've already seen days 1 and 2, then there's two more blog posts you can use to kind of extend your knowledge of the Microsoft Graph Toolkit. If you're new into this, you've not heard of it before, go back and look at days 1 and 2 as well. They're very good. Basically, it's kind of a wrap-up series around the toolkit, how you can go from not knowing anything about it to being able to use it. So really useful. Two blog posts there that definitely should take some of your attention. So there's also a guide for developers of any kind of, not just Microsoft Teams developers or Graph developers. This is kind of all Visual Studio developers really, and that is concerning Visual Studio Live Share. So I've talked about this a little bit before, but it's seems like right now actually it's could be a really useful tool to you if you're trying to get work done collaboratively with colleagues in a kind of debug session. You're trying to do code reviews, you're trying to pair program, and you're trying to do all of that remotely under quarantine conditions. Then actually something like LiveShare may be exactly right for what you need. It is exactly what it sounds like. Allows you to collaborate on code together. So kind of really good timing for this blog post. It goes through how you can easily get started, how you can start a sharing session from within Visual Studio really quickly, how you can join it from a browser if you don't have Visual Studio, how you can upscale. You can add an audio call in there as well, which is kind of interesting. That's an insider's feature, by the way. So you need to be a Visual Studio insider, but you can actually start an audio call from within your Visual Studio Live session. So that's really interesting, actually. No idea kind of what that uses under the hood. I'm going to go and find out though. So lots going on there. Really useful tool that I think if you're doing development these days and you're trying to struggle through in doing it in pairs or in a group, you're struggling trying to do code reviews or even just talk through problems that you're having, LiveShare might be perfect for you. Okay, so that's one thing. What else? Oh, yeah, I wanted to cover this slightly just so you know it's happening. It's if you you may well be very aware of this already. GitHub has had some issues this week, some outage issues. I can't really work out why. I can't really work out if it's related to everybody working from home. Feels like GitHub wouldn't be that impacted because all its connections are sort of remote anyway. So I'm not sure what's going on there. But maybe they're kind of piggybacking on the wider Azure service, which we know is under enhanced increased load at the moment. So maybe that's something to do with it. But I just wanted to bring it to your attention. There's a ZDNet post about it by Mary Jo Foley. It's just worth you knowing going into next week as well. Just be aware GitHub has published problems last week. Maybe that extended to this week. So if you start seeing weirdness, don't be spinning your wheels. Maybe just check the status of GitHub, and maybe that's the thing causing the problems. Just wanted to make you aware of that. Right now it feels like all the information is useful, so trying to give you as much as I can so you can carry on working. So this is a cool blog post. So this is about new features coming to Microsoft Teams, and it's from VentureBeat, so it's not a Microsoft blog post, it's kind of a press blog post, and that's one of the reasons I put it in here actually, because it's obvious when you say it, but you see remote working tools, collaboration tools, video tools are suddenly quite mainstream because everybody's using them. So it's good to see that. It's good to see that they're getting the attention. And so I'm going to be linking to those kind of mainstream press release outlets, as and when they happen. This is one around announcements and new features coming to Microsoft Teams, some of which actually all of which we've already seen, but some of which are now coming out. Things like being able to raise your hand, It's about support for being offline, support for low bandwidth. And then this one, which is around reducing background noise in calls, automatically in software, reducing background noise in calls using AI. So this is not just necessarily frequency removal, it's like using AI to figure out, yeah, that sounds like a packet of crisps, I'm going to get rid of that. And it's kind of interesting. It was talked about at Ignite. I remember it being announced at Ignite, and talking to the program manager there about it, and she was telling me about it, and how how it worked, and how it wasn't just like taking out frequencies in the way classic noise removal might do, but it's actually using AI to analyze, which is kind of really interesting. So it'll be great to see that come to the platform. I don't know if it's going to be visible, if that makes sense. I don't know if it's going to be exposed in the UI, whether you're going to know, or whether it's a thing you have to turn on, or whether it's just going to happen magically in the background and we just kind of don't realize it's happening until it stops working one day, and then we're all remembering what background noise sounds like. So it's going to be interesting. But yeah, it's kind of quite a good sort of write-up actually in this post around, it goes into quite technical detail. I'm quite surprised for a non-specifically technical outlet. It does go into some detail about stationary versus non-stationary noises. So like a dog barking or a door closing would be classed as a not non-stationary noise. It's like a sudden thing, and actually that's also something that the Teams is going to deal with kind of going forward. So yeah, really interesting blog post actually. Look forward to seeing that coming to my Teams. And finally, this is good. Blog post by Scott Hanselman, and this is kind of aimed at anybody who is now working at home, doing remote working, and kind of is doing it for the first time and is not necessarily used to doing it. I guess you could summarise the whole sort of wrap up of the blog post as, this is not the best of remote working. Like, remote working is normally better than this. So don't be doing it thinking, this is terrible, I could never do this as remote working. Like, his title is Quarantine Work is Not Remote Work, because there's all sorts of additional stresses that are layered on top of standard remote work, such as, having to also, deal with children, deal with the stresses and pressures of everybody staying at home, dealing with the stresses and pressures of getting out to get food, the general stresses and pressures of everything that's happening at the moment, and dealing with that, looking after loved ones. There's so many other reasons layered on top of all of this that make right now a much more stressful period than it would normally be. So if you're feeling stressed out, some of that might well be because you're adjusting to working remotely, but don't necessarily blame the remote working, or when you get back to the office, don't think I could never do remote working because it was terrible. I think it's different right now. I do a lot of remote work anyway. I'm used to remote working, but this time is definitely more stressful than normal for all sorts of reasons. So yeah, I thought it was worth calling out, because if you're like me, you may be overly stressed and not quite sure why, because you might think, well, I'm used to remote working, I do this all the time, I shouldn't be stressed. Actually, it's a more stressful time right now, so it's okay to be feeling a bit run down and a bit tired and a bit stressed out. So that's kind of everything I want to talk about this week. There's some cool stuff happening still. It's great to see new stuff still coming out on the blogs, and it's really good to see new features rolling out of Teams. It feels like Microsoft have really responded to the fact that so many more people are using Teams. It feels like they are focusing the new features, taking into mind the fact that everybody is at home using their client in this distributed way, which is different to how they might have seen Teams being used in offices and meeting rooms and places like that. So this is really good to see. All right. Have a great weekend and look after yourselves, and I will talk to you again next time.